This week in comic books, starting with DC, we get Dark Crisis. Number 3 came out, and it asked the question, is it wrong to kill? We're going to discuss that one. And also over in the land of Marvel, we get Edge of the SpiderVerse. Again, and probably not as interesting, just being real right up off the bat. And in the land of Independence, we get Dead Lucky. And it addressed veterans issues. So we got a lot of stuff to cover in this one and some cool covers. Let's drop an intro and take care of it.
Yeah. My come and never sleep on me. I some change so you know go get what you're looking at for. No, I don't hoodie 멍청해.
Hey, what's going on, you wonderful weirdos? I want to welcome you back to this week's comic book review, where things may get a little deep this week. So definitely make sure you utilize that comment box down below and share some of your views about what's going on in some of these comic books. I'd greatly appreciate it. We're going to jump right into it with the Sword of Azerel, Dark Knight. So this is right off the cuffs of the whole urban legend thing that happened. Azazel's back, and he's an interesting character. His first name is Jean-Paul, which is interesting. And that's the interesting part of this, because he actually shares a name with a popular philosopher by the name of Jean-Paul Sartre. Now, this cat was kind of weird, and it's exactly what's going on with our main character in here. He's kind of stuck with this existential crisis that's going on, right? If you haven't read the book, basically somebody's going around and killing everybody that's making Lazarus resin, right? The stuff that brings you back from the dead. And Jean-Paul, in this particular setting, is more compassionate than he's ever been before. He's working in a hospice. He's trying that other side of religion, not all the hell and brimstone and bringing people to their maker, but more the taking care of people. And this is a conflict for him because they're two different parts of his personality. So what happens, and you know he's a member of the Knights Templar, right? That was explained in the whole St. Dumas run. So now we kind of got that, but an offshoot of the whole Templar Knight thing was another thing called the Poor Fellows. So now we have another character that's entered into this crisis, if you will. And what's great about it is that they're still on the hell and brimstone stuff, but they see people rising from the dead as blasphemy, whereas Azerel first thought that it was, you know, the coming of revelations, if you will, that people rise from the grave. And this has just been fantastic. I'm absolutely in love with this. But to get back to the whole philosophy part of it, this internal struggle that he has in utilizing his free will is now kind of getting questioned by this other person that's part of the same order, same religious group, believes the same things he does, the whole 9 yards. So how does this really work out at the end of the day? Jean-Paul Sartre says that, well, this is going to be an internal conflict consistently with him because, and he wasn't, I want to be clear, he was not the biggest fan of religion, like most philosophers of his time, but he actually criticized it very heavily, mostly because of what Azerel does in this book. He takes it upon himself to be the vengeance of God, if you will. And now he's trying to be this more compassionate thing, but he's getting pulled back into it. And of course, Batman's in the background because you got to sell the comic book, so you got to put Batman in it, right? You got to do that. This has just been a phenomenal read. So yeah, this has just been a great read. I'm really enjoying this. I'll be picking some more up of this. I really want to see where this goes, this whole human nature versus, you know, an existential crisis, and how does free will work out in there. It's pretty cool. Definitely check it out. Next, we got new Champions of Shazam #1. So Mary Marvel here. By the way, look at that. Look at that. They're getting crazy with these covers. It's almost like they're not made for kids. Until you read the story. This is kind of a childish story. So, like most young people, when they go off to college to find themselves. So the question here is really, is the environment you're in actually make you who you are, or do you have like some preset thing to be? That's always a good question to ask. Well, Mary Marvel doesn't understand that in some cases it is the environment in which you live in. We know this because the very first thing she does when she has to tell somebody her name at her new college and her new life, she lies. She makes up a name. Well, she doesn't make up a name. She just uses a version of her name. So they say Mary, I think it was Marianne or something like that. Some Russian poet or something like that. Or something along it. It doesn't really matter. Now, Billy Batson's trapped in the Eternity Rock. Sends a message through a rabbit to kind of be her Jiminy Cricket and say, no, you're supposed to be, fighting crime and taking care of people. And of course, tricks her into by fighting a character by the name of Master Disaster, who's just trying to rob a bank. But all in all, again, another crisis happens. Her foster parents turn up missing. And how's that going to work out? So this is cool in the aspect of, to go find yourself. Do you have to go and do it? Or are you just going to end up being a product of that environment, right? Like, think of a guy from the suburbs here somewhere in America, right? And then he joins the army and then he gets plopped into war. Is he finding himself there, or is he just reacting to the environment? I have the same question for her. Is she legitimately trying to find herself, or is she just trying to be something she's not, really, at the end of the day? Just interacting with the environment. So this brings up a lot of interesting questions. Definitely let me know what you think. Next, Killing Time finally ends. I really like this too. If you like the movie Pulp Fiction, this probably made a lot of sense to you if you read it. So we get back, we find out that Clockmaster, right, has kind of been behind this thing the entire time, as they kind of do a Guy Ritchie thing, kind of lay out how his involvement was always the guy in the shadows. We also find out that the Eye of Christ wasn't even anything to do with Christ. It actually, which is kind of a little nose up in the air. It was actually based off of a Greek play and the statue, the eye of some statue of some random god. So the eye, does it have powers, does it not have powers? It doesn't really matter if it does or doesn't in this case. The MacGuffin is just the narrative device to push the story forward. The real story here was the ultimate interaction between all the various people in this and their roles, and how predictable human nature is. It's kind of like a clock. When you put certain gears in it, you have a certain expectation and it reveals a time to you, right? That's kind of what we were kind of dealing with here, at least in my view. But I still love this. I love the entire series. I thought it was great. If you haven't read any of this, I know it's online, digital trade paperbacks. I try not to recommend things to read to people, but give it a shot. If you like Guy Ritchie movies, you'll definitely like this. All right, next, as said in the beginning, so I got Dark Crisis #3, and guess what cover I got? That John Jane cover. Now, come on, now, you gotta be kidding me. Look at that. That's just great. So in here, the question is it wrong to kill people? Group of people that are heart starch yes in it, and then there's just wackos that think that everybody should die, and then hopefully the rest of everybody else that has a normal capacity is somewhere in the middle. Black Adam's like, we gotta drop some bodies so we can prove a point. Nothing screams don't mess with me than killing somebody in a rifle gang, I guess. I know that sounds horrible, but it does say a message at the end of the day. Does it escalate things? That's a totally different situation. Well, our new Justice League here, they're not really down with this whole killing people thing. In fact, they're actually kind of selfish. They all want to go run off and protect just their families, and they want to inspire hope. But nobody's saying how to do it. The only one that has a conclusive answer of something is Black Adam in this one. Right, wrong, or indifferent, he is pretty straightforward with his answers. And seeing as the Justice League doesn't want to help him out with this, that just shows that he's hanging out in the wrong environment. So he beats feet over to the Legion of Doom. Yes, the Legion of Doom are back now. Are they going to fight villain on villain? That's always an interesting story. I'll read that any day. Also, we get kind of this weird thing that happened with the Green Lantern Corps in it, where they went to go face off Pariah, the guy that's kind of kicking off this whole crisis force, and he like zaps them into some pocket world dimension, multiverse, who knows, where like everything's Green Lantern and the Green Lanterns are running this thing and there's symbols everywhere. I'll be honest with you, I kind of got lost in the story on that one. Sometimes things just get a little too cosmic inside of a story, and there's a few other little stories that are running around in here that are kind of playing into it too, but that's kind of the basis of it. Is it wrong to kill? Yay, nay, indifferent, whatever the case may be. it does make an interesting story. All right, next, jumping right into Marvel, Edge of the SpiderVerse. So I'm just gonna say it. I wasn't particularly interested in this. And honestly, the last Edge of the SpiderVerse, I vaguely remember, and it was okay at best. This one, we got another crisis kicking off, where all the spider people got to come together. And we have 3 of them running around like the witches from Hocus Pocus, kind of watching everything that goes. So you get a couple of stories in here. The first one, we first meet the Spider Lord. Now, he's Scottish. This takes his story and his world kind of take place right around what we would consider the 1700s, right around there. So you got, the red coats, and then there he is running around. He's Scottish. He's got a kilt on, and he's just dropping, bad guys with his weird webby gun thing. I don't know. And then we meet Spider-Woman, Spider-Girl, Ariana, or whatever the Spanish word is for spider. I know that she goes by that name as well. Doesn't matter. She has tons of names. She makes sure you know that. And she's going through like an evolution of some sort where her powers are getting stronger for some reason. Didn't really explain it. It was just told to us. I don't know. I'm not sure what that. And she got a new costume. Like that's. And it was pretty redundant too throughout. The next story we're coming here, we get Spider-Rex, and that's, I'm not even going to bother reviewing that story. That right in itself is just kind of, it's like crammed dinosaurs wherever you can, I guess. The last story was Spider-Man Noir, though. That one's interesting because on the desk of Spider-Man Noir, there's a book that is sitting there. Now his story kind of takes place in that, Prohibition era type thing, right? And there's this weird book, and I'm going to show it to you. Right there on the desk, notice the author's name is in red, and it's Anne Rad. Anne Rad is a philosopher. Imagine that, another philosopher, right? However, she doesn't get the credit that she rightfully deserves as being one of the greatest philosophers of all time. She is, some would say, an extreme capitalist, and that would be ignorant people calling her names, to be quite honest. Ayn Rand doesn't believe that you are your brother's keeper or that you should have to take care of people, and she's very staunch about how taxes and various government agencies are theft. Like, a little dramatic about that, I'll give her that, but for the most part she calls it theft. She's even in a marriage, she was like, it should be mutually beneficial, and I'm like, it's very attractive, right? So before you're like, no, love, and you start throwing emotions into it, right? Think about the scenario where you wouldn't be with your partner, and why wouldn't love conquer that, right? Like if they were homeless before you met them, or whatever the scenario may be. And I really don't want to debate if she's right or wrong. That's not really the case. Some of her works also include, just so you know, I'm sure you've heard of these, Atlas Shrugs. She wrote that under her pen name, and she's also the author of Fountainhead as well. Again, just a wonderful person. Down below in the link, I am going to put a link in there to an interview she did, one of her first interviews with Mike Wallace, way back in the day. So it's not terribly interesting, and it's a little long, but she's done various other interviews throughout the years before her passing in 1980. I think she had something to teach the world, and the reason why she's probably not too popular within universities and colleges at the level as, say, Kantiism or something along those lines is because she even saw universities as theft, because they would take federal money, taxpayers' money, and create courses and classes that she just didn't find relevant to people. Sound familiar? I'm getting a thumbs down for that. I'm okay with that. All right, next, Ghost Rider. So we get to what we finally know would be the place we need to get to, right? It's a giant motorcycle race. Go figure, right? Ghost Rider is going to ride in this race, and the whole preface of this race is to get to the devil, because if you win or make it, it's kind of vague about that, he'll grant a wish, right? But like anything with the devil, of course, that's not really what's going on. It really is a trap, and at the end of the trap is Blackheart. Remember Blackheart from back in the day? Remember the game? And He was in the game. Yeah, Blackheart. He's actually there. The people in the race are all your favorite Marvel characters that have serious, heavy regrets and sins, both good and bad. And Wolverine even kind of helps our boy Johnny Blaze out, which ultimately gets him stuck. And this makes sense because this whole story is about his response to his emotions and what's going on in him. Anger, rage, vengeance, whatever you want to call it. It's all just being mean at the end of the day. It's kind of him dealing with that, and a lot of internal monologue about that. The whole ghostwriter thing in here is really just a, I don't know, a metaphor? Yeah, we'll call it a metaphor for his emotions that run through him with his head injury, or TBI, some people would call it, traumatic brain injury. So yeah, I'm really digging this. I'm probably looking too much into this book, but I do thoroughly enjoy it. The story within the story, if you will. Even if I am making it up. Alright, next, Moon Knight. Ready? So we knew it was going to happen. We know that Moon Knight has dissociated identity disorder. And this one it kind of addresses it a little bit. And the writer's smart. So in this, we get the other two personalities of Moon Knight in here. Grant and Steve or whatever, and they're like convincing him that, hey, when you started getting all these, first they want to kind of be back in the limelight, right? Take a little bit more control right now. Moon Knight's been doing it himself, and now they kind of want to start getting involved, and he's like, nah, I gotta do this on my own. And that's his kind of running theme, right? On my own. And they're like, hey, you know, and this is smart because it can show that sometimes when you have something right with you, or depression, anger issues, PTSD, or some sort of dissociated disorder of some sort, it can play with you, right? Hey, you didn't have all these problems that you have now because we weren't there, right? And you hear this when people like take medication for whatever issue they're having. You'll hear this. I've been fine. I can get off my meds now. Nothing's happened. It's like, oh, right? Bad. So as we go through this, we also start to realize that, well, Moon Knight starts realizing, really, that he's not on his own. He has, like, real human interaction with people, and Moon Hunter, and Tigress, and all these other people. And while all this is going on, he's having a physical battle, right? He's physically battling something while arguing in his mind and then coming to a realization. I like this. It's smart. It's threefold. It's a little thick, right? But it's smart and it's good. And I just absolutely enjoyed it. And I don't think I've missed an issue of Moon Knight yet. It's great writing. Who is writing this? We'll talk about it later. All right, next. So, Dead Lucky, as I mentioned. So we got a veteran here. Back from war, came home, and like any veteran returning home, the neighborhood's changed. This one's changed for the odd. So apparently this place got so bad that the tech companies around it did some magic dope deal with the city to say, hey, we'll be the enforcement. They got robots and stuff like that out there. And of course, whenever there's a fascist state or a fascist company trying to hold people down and convince people that they know better, there's always pushback. So we got a gang. There's our antagonist in it. So our veteran has superpowers. Doesn't really explain how she got them, right? Doesn't really cover that part. I'm assuming that will come in flashbacks and stuff. And her friend can make a mech suit for her that I guess she powers because she can conduct electricity, yada, 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 right? Gang shows up. They realize, oh, this mechanical robot thing is not part of the corporation. The corporation realizes it's not part of the gang. Where is this thing coming from? Let's find out, right? It's a good setup. But what I liked most about this is the kind of, at one point, our Dead Lucky here is talking to her therapist at a VA hospital or something along those lines, and she mentions, I don't like having my back to the door, and a lot of little quibs in here that are kind of like, their favorite one is, thank you for your service, and she explains, hey, I don't know what to say, when people tell me that. That's a very common thing. If you're a veteran and you don't know what to say with that, two things don't work, right? One, an asshole joke, right? Dark humor joke no, don't do that. And the other one is, oh, I didn't really do anything, blah, 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 right? Don't do that either. If you're a veteran and somebody says, thank you for your service, or tries to make a big deal out of it, here's the best thing you can say. You'll walk away happy, they'll walk away happy, and just make it part of your script. And you know what I'm talking about when I say script, right? Just say, thank you for your service. Or when they say, thank you for your service, just simply say, thank you for your support. And leave it. Just walk away. See, put a little smile on your face, a little smirk, point out, whatever the case may be. I know a lot of veterans that have a hard time with that. Hey, you're a hero. Oh, it works there too. Hey, thank you for your support. Boom. Drop it, leave it, walk. Mic drop it. Just go. It's the best thing you can do, because everything else just makes you sound like an asshole. I've had to learn this lesson. Like, my favorite thing was, thank you for your service. I don't know why. I just stood around a lot. Right? You heard that, right? That just sounds dickish. So, and that's a rant. So, also, if you did pick this book up, take the time to read the letter back here. The writer is very clear that she is not a veteran, but she has a veteran friend, and this is kind of their connective piece. And apparently, the person influenced this story a lot. So that's really cool. It was all right. I'm not gonna lie. If issue 2 or 3 come out, I'll probably read up some more. I'm not throwing it like super high on my reading list, but for the most part, it's a good book. All right, next, Twig. You know I got Twig, and it's everything that a side quest story is. We find out that our Twig here has a little bit of a heart. Well, of course he does. He's the cute character in it, but he has to go to the Horned Beast to retrieve the Horned Beast's horn. Come to find out, it's this dopey-looking hippopotamus thing with a horn on its nose, and that's where its heart is. And Twig explains it into things like legitimately, or explain why he needs the horn, and this means I gotta kill you, and I'm so sorry, and like, genuine, right? Something you don't see a whole lot. Just genuinely hurt to have to do this. And the things like, yeah, okay, I get it if it saves everybody, and like literally lays down its life, right? Of course they don't kill it, because they can ride it. So they jump on its back and continue on in their little side quest here, going through various trials and tribulations, if you will, to ultimately end up on a bridge. I like the metaphor of a bridge, good and bad, or a goal, and then something interrupting that where you're trapped, right? Our hunter from a few issues back is the one that Twig tricked. He's got all the rings, kind of weird looking. He's there, and he's not happy. And that's where they kind of left us on this one. It's super good, and it's got a young. Oh, and he also had to get a song. I like the idea of a song too. From a particular prisoner, and had to make the moral decision to let this prisoner monster thing out and get the song, or leave it in there and not get the song. But he needs to put the gym back together, so of course he needs it. Seaside stories, side quests, they always get weird. So yeah, for the most part, I like this. I like this a lot. This is really good. What's going on this week? I'm finishing up the Evil Lair project. We're going to be making something pretty cool in there. Finishing the last little bit of that up. A lot of good stuff coming on this week, so definitely hang around the chats. I believe there's going to be a banter this weekend. I'm just not sure who's hosting it. We'll find out. Keep your eyes open. We'll see what we can do. All right, guys. I got nothing else. I got to get out of here. Bye.